Well, guys, it's about time that we own up to our mistake. We have finally owned up to the errors of our ways, and we have changed as collectors. As of today, we are switching to Hasbro Star Wars The Vintage Collection.
Goodbye, Droidica. Hello, Lobot.
Obviously, that was a big joke.
We got you.
We gotcha. That would never happen.
I saw you type it.
Yep. But the title of this video is still true. We have changed as collectors. My name is Justin. I'm joined with Nate.
How's it going, everybody?
And welcome back to a very special episode of Figure It Out. Today we're going to be spitballing. Not a lot of notes. We just wanted to kind of go off the script. We never have scripts.
Yeah.
We never have scripts anyway, but we have like bullet points.
Realistically.
I got 3 bullet points today. I wanted to talk about how in the past few years, maybe the past like year, even 2 years, we have genuinely changed as collectors. Our collecting habits have changed.
Absolutely. I think realistically it happened a little bit sooner for you than it has for me. But I feel like with the points that we have for this video, we've kind of ended up in the same place, essentially.
Right. And each one of these points, we might vary on the severity, on the degree of which, you know, we're making these points. So the first point that shaped my and your modern collecting habits and how we've changed is the fact that Hasbro Black Series took a turn for the better. We thought it took a turn for the better in 2020. That's kind of like the year, like our benchmark year that we always use. I think 2023 to current is like a new era of Black Series. And the point I writ down in my little note here is banger release after banger release with an emphasis on what I truly wanted.
Yeah. They specifically have been checking off figures that we have been waiting for forever. Like, since we started collecting the line, things like Droidica, Super Battle Droid.
More prequel Jedi.
Yeah, exactly. More prequel figures in general. Things like Darth Maul on the Blood Fin.
Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Right. We've finally started to get, like, stuff that you and I personally have really wanted. And there's just been a lot more variety as well lately, too, with things that we've wanted. Good mix of OT, prequel, video game.
Yeah, the EU Legends gaming stuff. They did Starkiller, Malgus, Malik, Bastila. They've been doing so much stuff. Commander Bakar is coming. The Commando Droid is coming. My point is, they've been doing so much stuff that we've been essentially begging for years. And I've been telling people, like in the Discord, for example, yeah, my purchasing has gone down. Compared to like 2020, 2021, 22, the total amount of figures that I buy have gone down.
Right.
But there has never been a time in the history of this line that I have been more excited. And that is because they're truly doing the stuff that I want. Versus before it was like, well, it's a cool looking figure, like I'll still pick it up.
Right.
And I kind of I've been redoing my display, and I have those Droidicas front and center. I have those Super Battle Droids front and center. And it just really started to put in perspective, like, man, that's what I really want. Not this, and that, which goes hand in hand with our other 2 bullet points on here. But we're starting with this one because it's true. I genuinely think there is no better time to be a Black Series collector. They truly have pivoted to listening more to fan demand, especially with all this prequel stuff. And it's made some other parts of the Black Series go on the back burner.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is pretty funny, though, how, like, when you are in that situation with things like the Droidica or the Super Battle Droid, how easy it becomes to make, like, the determination of what to pull off your shelf. You're just like, oh, it's a no-brainer. It's time for that to go. Which is something I thought like was going to be a lot harder, especially when it comes to all of like the Star Wars just Black Series stuff. Like for me, I still have Rogue One figures on display. I still have Kenobi figures on display. I still even have sequel trilogy figures on display currently at the moment. Not for very much longer, but at the moment.
Yeah, so I've just sort of specialized and I've really locked in on what I truly love, and that's OT and PT. And that goes hand in hand with number 2 on our list, which is apathy for the new Disney media. I wrote Disney era apathy / fatigue / lack of quality. It's no surprise. I mention it all the time, my disdain for new media. It's literally on the Out of the Basement bingo sheet for the Lazy Sunday live stream. But I think just these past couple of years have really just been disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. And I finally just hit that wall where I can go no further. I can only be disappointed so many times in a row before I say, why do I continue? Instead of raging and getting all pissed off and just becoming a miserable person, maybe take a step back. Which I know we feel slightly different on this.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not quite as far as you are. I'm definitely getting there. And I feel like for me, I do this thing a lot where when any of the shows or anything like comes out and my first watch, I'm like, oh yeah, I liked it. But it's really just like, I just like Star Wars. So I'm just like, I had a good time. And then I think about it, and maybe I watch it again or watch it another time. And then I'm like, oh wait, maybe this wasn't very good.
Yeah.
So, it's just like, I'm like, I try to give the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, it's Star Wars. It's fun. We're having a good time. And then, you try and go back and watch, and it just, things like Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, they just don't have the same long-term appeal that something like the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy or even something like Rebels or, the earliest Disney era stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I can go back and check that out any day of the week and I have a great time, but it's, a struggle to want to like, yeah, I'm gonna watch The Acolyte again.
Yeah, and we can get a little specific because I know people are going to be curious and people tend to say, like, you always say you, like, don't like it anymore. Like, why? Like, what are your reasonings? So, my reasonings is basically the characters of these shows. I think the characters, for the most part, are so unbelievably artificial. They are hollow shells of what would be actual real characters with depth and complexity and nuance and charisma and charm, personality. These characters are so unbelievably one note, and it just screams like corporate, like MCU.
The majority of the character development they feel like is, it's Boba Fett. You already love Boba Fett, so we don't really have to elaborate much. Or you already know Obi-Wan Kenobi, so you already love him, so we don't really have to elaborate much on his character.
Yeah.
They like rely on you already being familiar with the character for that amount of character, and it just doesn't work.
And then,
because then these legendary characters are like boring and hollow, and you're like, who are they?
right, and then the new characters that they introduce, again, they're just non-characters. They're just there for funny hoo-hoo ha-ha, or they're there for just stoic, wooden, flat, boring, the creature was over there, and now it died, and it's my fault. Like, I'm like, what am I watching? So it's characters. If I can't care about the characters, I can't care about the show. Another thing, tonal inconsistency. Something like Kenobi gives me tonal whiplash. Because, Nate, are they going for slapstick Three Stooges, like, absurdity, or are they going for dark, gritty, depressed Obi-Wan on the desert, saving his meat for his little Eopie? Is it a character study, or is it Three Stooges? Like, the tonal whiplash of Kenobi. And Book of Boba Fett is when I started this train, but I think Kenobi really pushed me over. Because one moment, it's like a funny hoo-hoo-ha-ha Three Stooges moment, and then it hard cuts to Obi-Wan screaming in agony, getting dragged across a fire, and Darth Vader is snapping people's necks and, like, cutting heads off. Intertwined with, like, Goonies style, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like obviously the little Leia, the typical younger character with an older character having an adventure.
Which, that whole thing is, like, they cannot for the life of them stop doing, is the parent with the child, like, the reluctant parent. Like Grogu, the reluctant dad. Obi-Wan, the reluctant dad. Hunter, the reluctant dad. Is Star Wars creatively bankrupt, Nate?
I just think Disney finds something that works and they run with it until it is just completely obliterated and decimated into the ground. Like, just the whole phenomenon in Star Wars in general, with every character has to have a little guy or girl, human, droid, alien, creature thing. Every single new character.
Yeah.
I like them, you know, don't get me wrong. Things like BD1, hey, I like the little guy, but it's like there's no modern Star Wars characters that don't have a little guy sidekick.
Yeah. And then other than that, there's just a lot of inconsistencies, characters doing complete 180s out of nowhere. Dialogue has been really, really flat lately in a lot of these new shows. And it just doesn't have the charm, and it doesn't help that something like House of the Dragon, which wasn't even the best season of Song of Ice and Fire to ever be on TV, but it's like that compared with Acolyte. I'm like, man, rich character depth, amazing dialogue.
Hurt.
And then hard cut to, hi. Like, it's just, it's horrible.
The few episodes that those two shows aired together, it was just so painful.
Yeah.
To watch House of the Dragon on Sunday, and then you just knew Tuesday was coming, and you're like, I'm about to be bored for 35 to 40 minutes.
Yeah. And it's just, the modern Star Wars, to me, it doesn't have a strong focus. It doesn't have a strong goal. There is such minimal payoff. They set all this stuff up, and then it either subverts your expectations for the sake of subverting your expectations, or it leaves you with more questions than you began with. And it's just totally unsatisfying. I do want to give a quick spotlight to the things I do love, because I already know people. Hater Justin.
Yep.
Hater Justin. For the record, I do love The Mandalorian Season 1, The Mandalorian Season 2.
Agreed.
I love Rebels.
Yep.
I love Clone Wars Season 7. And I especially love Andor, and I think Andor is easily the best Star Wars that Disney has done.
Dang. Yeah, I would 100% agree, except for flip Andor for Rebels.
Yeah.
And then we're all good.
Yep, but Book of Boba Fett, Mando Season 3, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Acolyte, maybe even Bad Batch. I can't even finish Season 3.
Bad Batch, I think, lumps into it because Season 2 was an absolute slog, and there is only a handful of really solid episodes in Season 3 before it turns into the whole repetitive, endless cycle, so you're not wrong.
And I think my apathy outweighs my, like, oh, this is dog shit.
Well, yeah.
Like, it's more, I'm not calling any of this necessarily dog shit. I think I'm just indifferent, and I just do not care anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's almost worse.
Perhaps.
I think apathy is worse than something comes out and I'm like, yeah, I didn't like that, but I'm gonna check out the next show. Now I just don't care, and I'm like, am I even gonna watch Skeleton Crew? I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I think I've just slowly started to accept that Star Wars is not going to give me what I want on a consistent basis. Obviously, Andor Season 2, I hope it's going to be goated. Mm-hmm. I hope it's going to be great. But for the most part, I've just started to accept that I am a fan of more, not to sound like an elitist, but I am a fan of more mature storytelling. I like some more complex lore. Like, obviously, we've loved Lord of the Rings for the longest time, but I love A Song of Ice and Fire, and we have things like House of the Dragon currently airing, and my newfound love for Dune, which, like, a lot of people find that boring, and I'm like, I've randomly, like, I'm obsessed with it now, and I want to read the books now. And so and even something like The Batman, which is a superhero film. There's just all these other things coming out that's a bit more mature, and I just think my tonal, atmospheric preferences have changed. That being said, you're not stupid if you like it. That's not what I'm saying.
Of course, yeah. That's what I was going to also tack on is, you know, if you like all of this stuff, totally fine, totally cool. It's just really not for us. And I think that while I largely agree with you, I also just, one final thought, just think that the new fun elements of modern Star Wars just don't hit like the old fun.
Like the moments of levity, I feel like they take it too far.
Yeah.
And they kind of are injecting a little bit of that modern, like, MCU style humor that we're the last people on Earth who like that style of humor.
Exactly.
I think they take it too far. So there's layers and layers to this. There's tons and tons of criticisms that we have. I knew we'd dwell on this topic a little bit, but people are curious, and just, I really hate you guys must not have seen the prequels. You think this is bad? I'm like, just because something has been bad before doesn't mean we should continue to get slop in the future. Just because something was bad before doesn't justify or excuse future bad stuff. Just have some standards.
No.
Like, I hate that talking point. And I also hate you just expect too much out of Star Wars. Like, Star Wars is Star Wars. It should be better than Marvel. It should be better than DC. It should be better than everything else. Because it's Star Wars. And it's supposed to be good.
There you go.
Anyway, tangent over. Number 3, Nate, 3D printing.
Yeah.
We need space. We need room.
I really think that this, to me, is the biggest thing that is currently changing my outlook on collecting in general. Not even just for my Black Series collection. At this point, I'm like looking at my NECA figures. I'm looking at my McFarlane. I'm looking at my Marvel Legends. Realistically, I'm just like, I wish there was a land speeder Luke for each of the different lines. Yeah. Because getting a 3D printer has been a total game changer. Being able to print out dioramas, world building pieces like tables, chairs, cups, weapons,
thrones, hallways,
stuff like that has begun to elevate my collection to heights that I didn't even think were possible.
Right.
And it's also like awakened a little bit more creativity in myself, where I've jumped like back into painting and customizing and making new figures. So it's like, this has totally changed me. And obviously printing out 6-inch scale dioramas, anyone out there that prints these out knows you need space. Justin, they're big. They're huge.
They are big. I'm looking over at your shelf. You have your Tantive 4 set up. You have your Cantina bar set up. And they are just amazing pieces. And they amplify your display. They enhance each figure. I just feel like you appreciate each figure more when you have that world building stuff. And as a result of 3D printing, and especially the Bamboo P1P, which is just like, compared to the Ender 3 V2, is like a super computer. It's a super printer. And we just hit the button and it just prints out the flawless piece. that we're printing almost every time. And that has led me to offing a lot of my Disney era Star Wars Black Series figures. I've completely got rid of all of my sequel trilogy stuff. I got rid of all my Solo stuff. I am starting to sell my Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff and my Book of Boba Fett stuff and some stuff from Mando that I didn't need, because I've had a sequence of epiphanies of just, why am I buying this stuff if I don't like the source that it's coming from? Why did I buy Black Chrysanthemum? I didn't like the show. Why did I buy the Pike Soldier? I didn't like the show. Why did I buy Cad Bane and Cobb Vanth 2-pack? I didn't like the show. So I'm just like having this realization, like, I really need to focus in on what I want, which is original trilogy, prequel trilogy, 2D Clone Wars, 3D Clone Wars, Rebels, some gaming stuff, and that's it. I'm an OT purist for the most part, and it's been alleviating stress and redefining my collection and collecting habits, because I want more 3D printed stuff, and when you want more 3D printed stuff, you need space.
I just really think that being able to create these dioramas and make specific scenes with our Black Series figures, like you said, it just makes you appreciate those figures so much more. Like, just as a minor example, right now my current printing project is the trash compactor. The Death Star trash compactor. Now, I've had that Luke Skywalker sitting in my storage bin for years.
Right, yeah.
For years I've just had him in storage, because he's not a good looking figure, and on the shelf you're like, ugh. But now that I have this diorama, I'm like, the figure now has value to me, and I'm like, oh, I gotta pull that Luke out because it's scene specific and it's gonna look awesome when it matches the diorama piece. So I've been really enjoying that it's taken some figures that I've had in storage or maybe not have really paid attention to or cared about in a while. Yeah. And it's made me bring them out and kind of have a newfound appreciation for them.
Yeah. And it also saves money when we get to pass on entire waves. And that's not to say we're done collecting Black Series. We're done with Black. I've still picked up like 30 figures this year, so 40 maybe when you consider the multi-packs.
Right.
But it's just, I'm picking up the prequel stuff. I'm picking up the Clone Wars stuff. And, I mean, one of the figures I'm most excited about, Hammerhead, Moman Edan, our one singular 2024 so far OT figure, not counting International Archive or A-lister Vader. And he's going to go right in that bar. And that's just how we are as collectors now. So now when I see an entire wave of Acolyte, we're going to have an entire wave of Skeleton Crew. So going forward, I'm really going to have to love the series for me to pick up some new media stuff. Like, I'm still getting the Andor figures because Andor is amazing. So it's earned its place in my collection. But it is nice to just pass on any future Acolyte figures, Skeleton Crew figures, whatever new media that they decide to put out. And I'm just focusing in on that prequel stuff, the Clone Wars stuff, that OT stuff, Rebels if they ever do anymore.
Yeah.
So I've been saving a lot of money, but I've also been putting that money towards filament.
Yep.
So it kind of balances itself out. And Hasbro has also been, like we said in that number one bullet point, they've been pivoting towards more of the stuff we want anyway. So it's starting to mesh. It's starting to balance itself out with like market demand and then listening to the community more. And I think we're in a really good space. So I know there's been a lot of negativity. Maybe you perceived a lot of negativity in this video, but overall positive. I think I've never been in a better headspace collecting.
Yeah.
And I've never been more excited for the future of Black Series.
Right. We're finally at that point where we've started to get so many heavy hitters, fan favorite characters that have been needed for years. So it's like we're getting to that point where it's maybe we are going to finally start seeing some of those obscure things that we've wanted for a long time, like Imperial Gunner or Lobot, you know, those
Nine Numb,
where we're like, you know, now that we're getting through some of these big heavy hitters, it's like, okay, we're starting to get to that point where maybe we're going to get some more of those like, obscure characters, you know what I mean?
And we were starved so long for things like Droideka, Super Battle Droid, that I think as a consumer, I was filling that hole with figures that I didn't necessarily like or need. Yeah. And now that we're getting those,
right?
Like I said before, like this is what, wait a second, this is what I really want. That's what I want all of this display space to be dedicated to. So now I'm going to go back, I'm going to get rid of a bunch of Disney era figures, and I'm going to stop, for the most part, buying Disney era new media figures.
Yep.
And that is how I've changed as a collector and how you've changed as a collector.
Yeah. I haven't gone quite as far as you. Like I said, I still have my Rogue One stuff on display. Yeah. I still have my sequel trilogy stuff on display, but not for much longer. The new Cantina print from Landspeeder Luke is incredible, but it is also massive.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to properly display it. I also want to be able to properly display my custom figures as well, which is, again, something like 3D printing, being able to 3D print heads for Black Series figures, total game changer.
Yeah.
Total game changer. But it's just so much fun, and it's awesome, and I want to be able to properly display the stuff that Luke has made. You know, show that off too, as much as the figures themselves. So
because ultimately that's what I want my collection to be. That's what we prefer. In my fantasy La La Land, I mean, this will happen someday, but someday I will have a full finished basement that I can call my own, and I'm going to make that the Fig Haven, and I'm gonna recreate the original trilogy with 3D printed dioramas.
Every single scene.
I mean, that, unironically, not every frame of the movies, but like in all seriousness, that's kind of what I see my end goal for collecting. So I just think it would be healthy for everyone out there to curate your collection and just take a step back and think, do I really need this? Is it worth picking this up? What do I really want in my collection? Don't let the collection own you. You own the collection.
Couldn't have said it any better than that, Justin. And with that being said, that's all we got for you on this week's episode of Figure It Out. Hopefully you enjoyed it. A little bit of a longer one.
Yeah, let us know how you have changed over the years as a collector. Have you gone on a similar journey to us? Have you doubled down on the Disney stuff because you really like that stuff? Totally valid if you have. Whatever it is, let us know in the comments down below. Hit like, subscribe if you're new. We are always talking about the Black Series here on the channel. If you are in a position to help support our channel in a more direct manner, we do have a channel membership. There's a link in the description, a couple of tiers. Big shout out to all of our channel members. We love all you guys equally. Join the Discord, do all that stuff. It's a long video, but I think people like when we just sit here and yap.
People do like the yap. They like the yap.
I think they like the longer form content, which I really appreciate it if you do, because TikTok and Vine and Instagram Reels have absolutely rotted our attention span. So if you've made it this far, comment Spotchka.
There you go. Comment Spotchka.
I've been Justin, joined with Nate.
Take care, everyone.
And we'll see you guys in the next video.